listening to the Rachael Maves podcast, and I'm Rachael Maves, your host. Today we are speaking with Christine Feher. Christine is the Superintendent and CEO of California Pacific Charter Schools, or also known amongst our team CalPAC, where she leads TK through 12 programs centered on personalized learning and student success. With over 15 years of experience in online and independent study education, she brings deep expertise in charter operations, compliance, and policy. Christine is a strong advocate for educational equity and innovative models that expand access to diverse learners. Christine, thank you for joining me today.
My pleasure.
So we always start off with the opportunity for everyone who joins to share a little bit about why they chose education. Tell us your story.
Sure. So I, like most college students, was kind of searching for my purpose in life and trying to see how I was going to take my interests and connect them with a career. And so for a brief moment, I thought I wanted to go into social work. And then I took a few of those classes and I went, wow, this is so heavy, so much heavier than I think I'm prepared for. And so I was like, nope, that's not it for me. And I majored in sociology, and I was really interested in like social justice and, some like equity, type, themes, in my interests. And so, I sort of came to a conclusion that, education was sort of going to, I thought sort of like the way to equalize, the way to, for certain groups of folks to have more opportunity and to, sort of have a chance at equity, and that might be sort of the equalizer. And so I didn't really want to be a teacher. I was like, I don't think that's for me. And so I thought about my own education experience, and my school counselor was frankly not super awesome. And I thought, wow, I would have had more opportunities as I wasn't necessarily a first time college, but my parents went to college like later in life. So I was the first one in my family to go to college right out of high school. And so my parents didn't really know how to coach or counsel me, and apparently neither did my counselor. She didn't do a great job either. So I thought, well, wow, like what an opportunity to work with students to sort of help them identify their pathway and find a place to land. As I said, maybe that could be my my pathway. That, and I didn't really want to get a job right out of college. I kind of wanted to keep going to college. So for those reasons, I chose a pathway into school counseling. And then once I became a school counselor, I was a little bit frustrated at sort of handling problems on a one-to-one basis. Like I'm sort of a like helicopter up, and like if all of these kids are having similar problems, how can I problem solve on a larger level? And that paved the way to school administration for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I want to kind of come back to what you were talking about of really wanting to engage with certain student groups and provide additional opportunities for them. And the environment that you're in with CalPAC is a little bit unique. We have some people that listen to the podcast that aren't educators. Could you maybe just share a little bit about the structure of CalPAC and how that's different than a traditional model? And then I'd love to hear kind of how that vision and hope that you had ties into the model that you're providing.
Sure. Yeah, so CalPAC is a totally online school, and we've been online since pre-pandemic. So I like to say we were online before online was cool. And so so we're fully remote, TK through 12th grade. So you might refer to us as a non-classroom based school or a fully online school. And so our model is really, it looks very similar to traditional school. Our kids are online every day with teachers, but it's not all day, right? So if you're in a classroom all day long, you kind of have some of those like transitions from like, put your ELA math book away, put your ELA book away, now get your math book out. And you kind of lose time in those transitions. Obviously, there's the beloved recess and all of that. But, in a 6 or 6.5 hour school day, there's actually not 6 hours of learning happening,
Yeah.
right? The learning is shorter. And so what we do is we kind of say, hey, we're going to give you like a small chunk of learning, maybe an hour to an hour and a half, depending on your grade level, subject area, all of that. And then the rest of the day, you're going to learn asynchronously, engaging in the online coursework at your own pace. So some of our students
Mm-hmm.
are finishing their school day in like 3 hours because they're cutting out the fluff, they're cutting out the extra time.
Right.
Or maybe they can get through a lesson in 30 minutes instead of what it would take an hour in traditional class. There's also no homework, right? You do the work, you do the practice, and it's done. You don't do it in class, waste a bunch of time, turn around and talk to your neighbor like I did in high school, and then do all your homework at night because you didn't get anything done all day because it was social hour. So there's just it provides a different flexible approach to education, and it works for students who want to accelerate. It works for students who need to take twice as much time on a math problem and they don't want to be
Mm.
embarrassed that
Yeah.
it takes them a lot longer.
Yeah.
We have some options for like remediation and things like that are frankly embarrassing if you're in a traditional school. People know when you go to the special class or when you have math remediation class,
Yeah.
those things are known, and they can be ostracizing. So, in this model, you can learn and it can be a little bit more hidden and private how you're learning and what you're choosing to do. And so back to my story, I guess, about being a school counselor, one of the things that was happening, this was like, 2010 to 2012, most of our students, back then we were only 6th through 12th grade, and most of our
Oh, okay.
students were credit deficient high schoolers. They were
Oh,
coming to
sure.
us because their schools were like, hey, you don't have enough credits. You're in 11th grade. You don't have enough credits to stay here. You got to go to the
Mm-hmm.
continuation school. Well, what was the narrative about continuation school? That's where the bad kids go. Well, we had a lot of kids who are credit deficient that aren't bad kids. They just
Yep.
maybe had something go wrong, that go sideways, right? They came from a neighborhood where nobody could help them with their homework. And so they failed a lot of classes. And their parents didn't know. Maybe culturally, they didn't have an awareness that credits equal classes. I can't tell you how many parents I've had to tell that you don't just go to school for 4 years and get a diploma at the end. They
Right.
don't understand credits. They don't understand the grades. They don't understand how all that happens. So then their students, I don't know how you were in high school, but I didn't always tell the truth in high school. I kind of slipped things through the cracks. And so if you have a parent who doesn't understand how it works and you're telling them something and they're like, oh, that must be how it is. I don't know. I didn't go to school in the US, right? They just kind of take your word for it. And then all of a sudden, these kids wake up in 12th grade and they're like, I'm not going to get a diploma. So we created a credit recovery track, a pathway where students could actually earn more than, because we're not bound by hours in a day, a student could take 10 classes in a semester
Yes.
and get more like a year or almost a year's worth of credits in one semester. So we
Yeah.
were graduating kids on time or as close to on time as possible. And it just sort of worked, right? And these are kids that would have been pushed out, cast aside, maybe sent to continuation school where maybe they
Yeah.
would have encountered some of these bad kids that everyone was worried about and maybe made some different choices in their lives. And maybe their pathway would have been, significantly altered. And maybe some of the narratives that come from their neighborhoods would have been realized because they wouldn't have had an opportunity at a second chance to
Yeah.
change, to course correct.
Yeah.
So, so that is sort of how our model and some of the things that I'm passionate about coexist.
Yeah. Well, and your background in counseling, I think, provides such a unique lens to be able to see that through line from TK now all the way through 12th grade. And how do we make sure that students are as successful as possible? And that's why I think
Mhm.
it's beautiful that we have so many choices for schools, because to
Agreed.
your point, not everything's going to work for everyone. I mean, I'm sure that there are students, the model that you have set up
Yeah,
isn't going to be the best choice for them, and that's fine.
totally.
But similar with continuation schools and alternative programs and then traditional schools, but just that there's choice and that the choices are fantastic, I think is part of our call in education, right? So I mean, that takes us into that kind of next question, Christine, that I'd love to get your thoughts on, especially from your unique context of the type of school that you're leading, and then also your background as a counselor. What are the things that keep you up at night? What are the one or two things that really weigh heavy on you?
I think post-pandemic, I'm particularly interested in like the mental health crisis that is consuming our youth. Um, I've been sort of reading up on some of those causes and I think social media, I think the internet, I think all of those things, right? And it's so funny because I'm like, oh, get off the computer, but go to my school that's 100% on the computer. Um, right. So that's a little bit tricky, but I really am. I'm worried about our kids. I'm worried about the anxiety that they feel, the pressure that they feel, um, and how it's showing up in younger and younger kids. So I'm concerned about depression, anxiety. At our school, there are more students who experience these things because they are not able to get up and have this go to school all day. Maybe social anxiety is crippling and being
Yeah.
around that many people on a campus is not something that they can do, or we're seeing a rise in that. So we at our school at CalPAC, we do encounter students that either diagnosed or undiagnosed just have some of those vibes.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing an uptick. I've been in online education for like 15 plus years, and I've definitely seen the progression of the mental health epidemic in our
Yeah.
youth.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you're thinking about that, and I mean, I would just echo that. I don't know if you watched that Netflix show, was it Social Dilemma? Um,
I
that
don't
they
think I
premiered in
did.
you would be interested in it, Christine. I would check it out, but all of it was around what the data shows around the impact of our phones, social media on students and kids, especially our middle schoolers. And it's pretty compelling. We actually made our three daughters, I have three kids, sit down and watch it with us before they were wanting to get on social media. And we're like, there needs to be a baseline here and you need to understand some things. So it led to some interesting conversations. But that said, going off on a tangent, I would love to hear, just as you think about that mental health crisis and what your students are holding, and how are you thinking of mitigating that or supporting that or providing that intervention or whatever that looks like for you and your system?
Well, I think the answer is connection, right? I
Mhm.
think these kids are disconnected. I actually recently bought The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. And so I'm actually not totally finished with it yet, but I found it really interesting, like that our kids are like literally sitting around with each other, holding their phones on social media and not interacting with each other, and they're like in the same room. That never would have
Yeah.
happened when we were young.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's getting kids to connect. I think it's really interesting. One of the things that we found online is that these kids are actually very connected online. They're super willing to get into an online classroom and chat. There's kids that would never speak up. They would never raise their hand in a regular class, but here behind a computer, they're on screen. We do require them actually to be on camera,
Oh,
which
I
is a
love that.
battle in and of itself.
Yes.
But we're
Yeah.
fighting that battle and we're winning. But they are becoming more comfortable with being on camera and being themselves and representing themselves. And even if you don't want to raise your hand and take the microphone in class, being on camera and chatting and people being able to match your chat with your name and your face, there's something that's really personal about that. And I think that it's taking away that anonymity and that ability to just say whatever you want behind the veil of like social media or even a text message, right? You can text message people that you've never met, although you should not do that, but like they
Yep,
can,
that's
right?
right.
And have these like deep connections and lack that sort of like face to face. So that's something that we are weaving into our programming. We actually, even though we're fully virtual, have a ton of field trips. And our students are engaging with one another in field trips, and then they see each other in class. And then they ask to be with the kid that they like went on the field trip with and they were in the same group with. They ask to be put into a breakout room. When they go into breakout rooms, the kids actually now have a preference on who they're going into a breakout room with,
Right.
which I think is really incredible too. And then also we're noticing that our teachers and staff have deep connections with their students. Like how, I don't know, for the educators that maybe are listening to this podcast, if you are on a high school campus and you have 150 kids rolling through your, 5 or 6 periods a day, you may only really deeply know 5 or 6 of those kids, right? Where you've actually like held after class, or maybe they're in a club, or if you're a coach, but you don't know them because you're a teacher. You know them because you're the coach.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like the days of our teachers knowing our students are less. There's just less time. We spend so much time chasing after test scores and things like that. But I think actually the answer to the test scores is knowing the kids and knowing their strengths and weaknesses and building up their strengths, and then having a place where you have a place to speak into their life about their weaknesses, and then they'll actually listen to you about how they can maybe lean into some ways that they can work on those weaknesses. And that's what we do here. We forge those deep relationships with students and parents, and we kind of form what we call like a triangle of trust to work on the areas that students need help with. And when you know your students and you know their families and you know their circumstances, you actually have a voice to speak into them about these things.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And I love, Christine, because what I keep hearing you say over and over and over again is the relationships. Like at the end of the day, the way that we start to address this is through all these different modalities, but the heart of it is relationships, like knowing kids, seeing them, connecting with them. And I love that you included parents in that. I don't hear that often, of that triangle of trust, like you said, of that, them being that vital core piece. And it makes sense for your program too, but I think that is a huge gap that we have in some of our traditional models where they're not brought in and seen as that pivotal part. Yeah. I'd love to hear, for a final question, what question in education are we not asking that we really should be?
I mean, I want to lean into like what's next, right? Like we've been doing education the same way for such a long time. And I know everyone's talking about AI and it's like AI is the next wave, but like how? And how do you personalize AI? Because you can't take the teachers out of it. I'm telling you right now,
Yeah,
like,
that's right. I agree 100% with that
yeah.
statement. Yeah.
So to me, education is changing. Our society is changing, and education is not keeping up at the same clip as every other wave of innovation. And I don't have the answer. If that's the question I'm truly asking, is like, what is next? What does that mean? And what's working and what's not working in education. And so, yeah, I think that's the question we should be asking, is like, what's next? And I don't think it's one answer, right? I think that, I don't think that there's going to be one modality that works. I think we're
That's
way
right.
beyond that as a society. I think that you're going to find 2 or 3 or 4 modalities, and kids want to pick their own pathway. There's so many in life. There's so many choices and there's so many options. Why are there not more options in education and in how you get there?
Yeah.
And so I don't think it all has to look the same, but I think all kinds of education need to innovate so that we can produce the next generation of workers, of thinkers, of citizens who are going to inherit like the innovation that society is currently encountering.
I completely agree, Christine, especially with that comment of, I mean, we're going to have to come at it from multiple ways, right? Because education encompasses so much. It's not just about English language arts and math. It includes pedagogy. It includes learning science. It includes, I mean, all of these different components, social emotional learning, the whole child. So I agree, like there's going to be all of these different avenues, and one model's not going to work for every kid. So I think having those options is critical. It's been just a pleasure to connect with you today, Christine. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, likewise. It's been great. Thanks for having me.
A friendly reminder, everyone, that Parsec Education's updated early bird sale for Parsec Partners is live until September 30th. Partners get 25% off tickets for the 2026 Measure What We Value Summit happening February 4th through 5th in Fresno, California. Don't miss this limited time offer and the opportunity to experience our incredible MC Brandon Leak, Season 15 winner of America's Got Talent. Secure tickets now at parsecsummit.com.